in Germany, the place where about a dozen current-day church denominations trace their origin. They were called German Baptist Brethren for nearly 180 years, until they started dividing over issues related to living out their faith. They range in size from having almost 100,000 members to just a few hundred, with names like the Church of the Brethren Church, the Old German Baptist Brethren, Dunkard Brethren, Grace Brethren, Old Brethren, all related to what has become known as the Brethren movement of the early 18th century, a movement marked by a commitment to the simple life, a strong emphasis on service to others, a refusal to use violence to solve disagreements, a practice of committing to Christ as an adult, and an emphasis on community. Each of the dozen or so groups that evolved from this movement lives out those values in a somewhat different way, but all appreciate their faith tradition sufficiently to jointly support a Brethren Heritage Center in Brookville, Ohio, born out of a desire to simply remember where they came from.
A couple of us were standing at an auction of an old Brethren elder who had passed away, and commented to each other that it's kind of sad that here in the Miami Valley, where we have this rich heritage of brethren, and probably all the different kinds of brethren there are all represented here in the Miami Valley, and yet there's no place that's collecting the heritage of the brethren. Wouldn't it be wonderful if somehow we could work together to collect and preserve and make available our common heritage?
And from that discussion, the Brethren Heritage Center was born, housed in this building in Brookville, Ohio, run by a board made up of nearly all the different Brethren-related groups, kept afloat by staff and volunteers who catalog historical documents, organize artifacts, and generally document the heritage of this rich faith tradition.
It helps us to build platforms, it helps us to build bridges to the future. We can't live in the past, but that helps us to build bridges to the future.
We have a tendency to just look at today and think this is the only way life has ever been, and so we do have a tendency to take it for granted and not respect the labors and efforts and faith of those in the past and the sacrifices that have been made.
There's an old saying that he who does not know his history is destined to repeat it. And so maybe some history is worth repeating, some is worth avoiding, and if you don't know it, you won't know which ones to preserve and which ones to avoid.
Visitors to the Brethren Heritage Center are introduced to that history through exhibits that illustrate some of the beliefs of the various Brethren groups and some of the practices that are still in place today, such as the elements of the Brethren Love Feast, a celebration of Christ's Last Supper that is reenacted in literal form, including foot washing and the elements of communion. There are illustrations of some of the distinctive Brethren dress styles, which some of the groups still follow and others do not. But the majority of the space in this building is devoted to historical documents, magazines, periodicals, books, and other examples of brethren sharing with each other and the world their beliefs and practices.
We have about 30 or so fairly regular volunteers, and we could use at least that many more. There's a lot of work involved in a place like this of sorting, preparing the artifacts and the books and documents for archive purposes, and then cataloging so that we can find it. It's one thing to have it, but we have to also have it cataloged in a way that in the computer that we can find it when somebody comes in looking for it.
Members of these same bodies who trace their origin to the Schwarzenau Brethren gather every 5 years or so to renew acquaintances and share insights among each other into their own faith tradition. The 2008 gathering was in Schwarzenau, Germany, where the movement began 300 years earlier. In 2013, the Brethren Heritage Center hosted the 5th Brethren World Assembly, in which spiritual descendants of the Schwarzenau Brethren from around the world gathered in Brookville.
We see a continuity of faith, continuity of practice. We find comfort in that and a desire to continue that on into the future, to hand to the future generations as well.
The Brethren Heritage Center is supported entirely through donations. Many donors, called Heritage Friends, receive a regular newsletter that keeps them updated on events at the center and new materials that are added to the collection.
It also enables them to get a 10% discount on anything that we have here in the bookstore that we sell. So we encourage Heritage Friends. That's a wonderful way to help us out.
The Brethren Heritage Center has a wide assortment of books and DVDs, both new and used, on issues related to Christian faith and practice. And they're always open to more historical documents.
Getting a lot of material in to scan and preserve. So I feel it's a great future for this organization here.
The Brethren Heritage Center can be a valuable witness to those who want to know more about how this particular understanding of the Christian faith has been lived out through the years and continues to be lived out.
It helps us understand why we value certain things. It helps us know what we are so that we know where we're heading.
I hope someday the center becomes a resource that reaches out to our community, that helps interpret the Brethren story, not only to our local community here, but also to the broader community, much the same way that a lot of the Mennonite and Amish centers have done for those that have visited the areas, know people, and want to learn more about their faith tradition.
The Brethren Heritage Center invites you to help further the cause by becoming a Heritage Friend, by making at least a minimum annual donation. Consult the website or a Brethren Heritage Center staff person for details. You can also further the cause by donating Brethren-related books and artifacts to the center, or by volunteering to help catalog, organize, and process donated materials that help tell the story of the people who trace their origin to Schwarzenau, Germany. It's the story of a people who have been faithful to the gospel through the ages, and a story that still bears witness to that gospel today.